Minecraft mods go back almost as far as the game itself. So, what do you think of when I tell you to imagine very early Minecraft mods? Maybe texture replacements, a new item, or tools like NoClip? There are mods like that made for very early versions of Minecraft. But what if I told you that there are even earlier versions of the game that have barely even been touched by modders? This is version RD132211. It's the oldest version that we have access to. It was made in May 2009 by Notch, but was only made publicly available in 2013. At the time, Notch called it Cave Game, but the window is simply titled Game. As you can probably tell, it is very, very basic. It's a flat world with no caves, and it only has two blocks, those being grass and rocks. Because of its late release date and simplicity, almost no one was interested in modding this version, and I can't blame them because there isn't much here to even mod. But Minecraft is a massively popular game, so obviously someone out there would think to mod this version. And I was right, I did find a few mods. I found one that lets you fly and sprint, and I also found one that adds blocks from classic versions of the game. But that's more of just backporting features from future versions. I want to see what it's like to mod the very first version of Minecraft, so I'm going to do some experimenting and make my own mod. Where do we even start modding a version this old? Because there's no mod loaders or any tools in general for modding this version. The Feed the Beasts wiki claims that a mod loader called Ornith supports this version, but when I went to install it, there was no option for this version, because what would a mod loader even do in this version? I checked RetroMCP to see if I could use it to help with the modding setup, but it's not supported there either, so we're on our own. The first step to modding Minecraft is decompiling the game so we can get access to the source code. Minecraft is coded in Java, and luckily, Java is easily decompiled back into readable code. So I downloaded the Vineflower Java decompiler and decompiled Minecraft's first version. The only things missing from the decompiled code is the original formatting and comments. Sometimes decompiled code can produce errors, but this early version of Minecraft is very small and modern decompilers have gotten pretty good, so it works straight away without any changes. Most versions of Minecraft, even the very early ones, use a technique called obfuscation to hide file names, variable names, function names, and other things to make the code less readable. But luckily, this version isn't obfuscated, which makes understanding and making modifications to the code much easier. Now that the code is decompiled, I'll open it up in my IDE. After adding the LWJGL jar and natives to the project libraries, I can run the game from the editor. There's a few interesting things we can see in the code here. The main file that the game starts from is actually called RubyDung, one of Notch's previous games. He used it as a base to start this new project. That's also why this Minecraft version starts with RD. It stands for RubyDung, and the version number isn't actually a version number at all. It's the date that Notch compiled the game in day, hour, minute format. So the exact time and date this jar was compiled is May 13th, 2009 at 2211 CET. Alright, the code is decompiled and readable. Check. The game is running from the decompiled code. Check. That means the next step would be actually modding the game. There's just one problem with that. I haven't decided what exactly I want to mod. Remember how I was saying that almost no one wants to mod this version because there's not really anything to mod? Well, I'm kind of running into that problem myself. It's not like I can add a new item or anything because there's no item system. I kind of just jumped into this because I thought it would be fun, but never stopped to think what I'm actually going to do. Maybe if I just play it for a little bit, some inspiration will strike. Okay, here's something interesting about this version. If you've ever played it before, you might remember that you can't choose what block you place, and that would be because there aren't any different block types. The blocks don't have any properties. The way the level works is that either a block exists or a block doesn't exist. So every block is identical and behaves exactly the same. But if every block is the same, then how can there be two blocks? Grass and rocks. I wondered this too, so I did a little bit of digging in the code, and it turns out that while the blocks behave exactly the same, some of them are rendered with a grass texture, and some are rendered with a rock texture. That leads to the next question, which is how does the game decide which texture to render the blocks as? The game decides what texture to use based on the y coordinate of the block. The level in this version is 64 blocks tall, and in the code it shows that any block at 2/3 of the level height, which in this case 2/3 of 64 rounded down is 42, should be rendered with the grass texture, and everything else is rendered with the rock texture. And yes, it is called rocks in the code, not cobblestone. But this actually gives me an idea. What if I were to add another block texture, like wood planks, and then make every block above the grass render as planks? So you could build wood houses or something on the surface and then dig through the rocks under the surface? That would be kind of cool, right? At first, I thought I would just implement some kind of block system so you could choose what block to place and it wouldn't matter what y coordinate you're building on, but I realized that that's less of modding and more of just updating the game to what Notch made in subsequent versions anyway. And it would also require the level data format to be changed, which would ruin levels if you disabled the mod, so I'm going to opt for the simpler option of adding a wood texture. The first thing I'm going to do is see how I can add in another texture to render. Looking back at the code that decides which texture to render, we can see that the tile class is responsible because it contains the rock and grass tiles. It looks like when a new tile is created, it uses a number index to decide which texture to use. The jar contains a texture atlas which stores the grass and rock textures. This is where the game is getting its textures from. It starts at the top left, which is texture number 0, and it reads to the right like a book until it hits the limit of 255 at the bottom right. But right now, only textures number 0 and 1 are being used. Back in the code, I'll create another tile the exact way the other two were created, but I'll name this one wood and give it a texture index of 2, which will be the texture to the right of the rock texture. I'll just leave it as the default purple texture for now and add in a wood texture later after I finish modifying the code. The behavior I want is the game to render any blocks above the grass layer with a wood texture instead of rocks. With the way the code is now, it only has 2 options for deciding what texture to render. Any block at 2/3 of the level height uses a grass texture, and every other block uses the rock texture. But we need to add in a third option. The first idea I came up with is replacing the statement that assigns the text value with a switch statement that compares y values and sets the text variable accordingly, but this doesn't work as I need to use greater than and less than comparisons to see if blocks are above or below the grass layer, and switch statements don't support greater than or less than comparisons, so I had to change it to if and else if statements. After that, I added another else if statement where it decides which texture to use based on the text value, and it worked perfectly. Kind of. While what's supposed to be the new wood texture works just fine, the grass and rock textures are switched even though there's nothing wrong with my code. This had me stumped for a bit. I just could not find out what was wrong. There's a chance that you may have caught on to what the problem is earlier. Take a look at the texture index the tiles are assigned to, and then look at the texture atlas again. Do you see the problem? How about now? That's right, the tiles are actually assigned to the wrong texture. The rock tile is assigned to the index of the grass texture, and the grass tile is assigned to the index of the rock texture. So that's why the new tile I had created was working fine, but the grass and rock textures were swapped. Turns out that the first version of Minecraft isn't perfect. Who could have guessed? With that bug out of the way, the only thing left to do is add in a wood texture. I just picked an older wood planks texture that I think most people are familiar with and added it into the texture atlas. And here's the finished result. It works exactly as expected. Now you can build wood houses on the surface and dig through rocks under the surface. Before I recompiled the game, I went in and cleaned up the code I modified a bit so it's cleaner and more efficient, but ultimately achieves the same thing. And then I used my IDE to compile the game into a jar file, and since it's a mod, I don't want to be distributing the entire game with it, so I opened up the compiled jar and deleted everything I didn't modify. The only files left are the chunk file, which changed which textures are rendered where, the tile file, where I fixed that bug and added in the wood tile, and the texture atlas that includes the new texture. Here's a fun fact about the mod real quick. While I made the mod for the first version of Minecraft, version RD132211, it actually also works on version RD132328 because the two versions are almost identical, with the main difference being that the latter version has a bunch of Steves running around. After the mod was finished, I uploaded it to Modrinth as Ancient Planks. Yeah, I'm not the best at naming stuff. I just thought since it's the first version of Minecraft, the ancient part would be fitting, and since I added planks, that part's kind of obvious. Anyway, I doubt there's going to be a ton of people rushing to play a mod for the first version of Minecraft, but Modrinth has an option for it, so I thought, why not upload it? There was one problem with uploading it to Modrinth though. Remember how I said earlier that there isn't any mod loaders that support this version of Minecraft? Well, while Modrinth supports mods for the first version of Minecraft, it doesn't have an option for jar mods or no mod loader. You have to choose a mod loader. So I just picked the closest one to having no mod loader, which is Rasugumi's mod loader. Most mods that require this mod loader have to be installed as jar mods anyway, so I figured that out of the option I was given, this is the most fitting. If anyone working on Modrinth sees this, it would be cool if there was an option for jar mods as a platform. Thank you. I'll leave a quick tutorial for how you can install this mod here. I recommend against using the official Minecraft launcher as it doesn't allow jar mods to be easily installed, so I would recommend you use a launcher like Prism Launcher or MultiMC. In this example, I'll be using the Prism Launcher, which I'll have a link to in the description. If you want a more in-depth guide on downloading, installing, and setting up the Prism Launcher, the beginning of a previous video of mine goes over that. Once you've made it to the main screen of the Prism Launcher and you've signed into your Microsoft account, you can add a new instance. When selecting a version for the instance, tick the Alphas box and scroll to the bottom and select either version RD132211, or if you want Steve's running around your world, select RD132328. After the instance is created, you need to edit it, and in the new window, go to the version tab, and select the Add to Minecraft.jar button. If you haven't already, go to the Modrinth page linked in the description, and download the mod from there. It should download as a zip file. Now you can select the zip file in the Prism Launcher, and it should add the mod to the Minecraft jar file. Now whenever you launch the game, any blocks above the grass should be using a wood planks texture. If you found this video interesting, I'll ask if you could leave a like, and I want to do more videos like this in the future, so if you want to see more like this, make sure you also subscribe. Thank you for watching, and have a good night.